Good morning. The Buffalo Sabres spoiled Dylan Cousins' return to Buffalo last night with a 3-2 win over the Ottawa Senators. Sabres goal scorers Jack Quinn, Jacob Bernard-Docker with his first as a Sabre, and Tage Thompson. James Reimer started once again for the Sabres, stopping 30 of 32 shots. Dylan Cousins recorded an assist on Brady Tkachuk's opening goal in the game. The win also marked a milestone for Sabres head coach Lindy Ruff. He now has 600 regular season wins as the head coach of the Buffalo Sabres. With that win, Ruff now becomes the second coach in NHL history to win 600 or more games with a single franchise, only behind former New York Islanders head coach Al Arbour, who has 740 wins with the Islanders. Sabres back in action tomorrow, hosting the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 7 o'clock puck drop. One more quarterback free agent off the market yesterday. Former Steeler Russell Wilson signs a one-year deal worth up to $21 million with the New York Giants. The Giants also signed Jameis Winston to a 2-year, $8 million deal this past weekend and currently hold the third overall pick in this year's draft. Another big free agency move from last night sees former Bills wide receiver Stefon Diggs land back in the AFC East, but this time with the New England Patriots. The Patriots signed Diggs to a 3-year, $69 million deal with $26 million guaranteed. Diggs played last year with the Houston Texans before tearing his ACL in Week 8 against the Indianapolis Colts. In the 7 games that Diggs played, Diggs had 47 receptions for 496 yards and 3 touchdowns. Hey, join Mike Shope and Sal Capaccio as they broadcast live from the Ride for Roswell kickoff event today at Roswell's campus. This is your chance to pick up your fundraising materials and mingle while enjoying some food and drinks. You can even see where all the funds raised go with an exclusive tour of Roswell Park's research labs and facilities. Kickoff event starts at 5 p.m. and all are welcome. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Josh Schmidt for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Just as everyone predicted in year 14 of the drought on March 26th of 2025 that James Reimer would be the best Buffalo Sabre on the ice.
Yes, sir.
In
2
back-to-back
nights
games.
in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just as we drew it up, Reimer, who they waived earlier in the season, got claimed, went to another team. They said, nah, we're good. We'll send him back. And he's their best player through 2 games. Last 2 games, at least. Good morning. It's Jeremy and Joe. Jeremy off. Date Geary is in.
Good morning.
That game was an interesting game.
Yeah.
They win.
They do.
They spoil Cousins' return. There's a tribute video that some people are upset about because it didn't give Cousins 100% of the real estate. It was split between Cousins and Dennis Gilbert.
Who? Just kidding.
Well, I mean, somebody might be asking that question because he is from Buffalo, but he played in... How many games do you think he played in for the Sabres?
9.
It was more than 9.
14.
Let's see. 25.
Okay.
25 games. Yeah.
I don't...
Do we care?
It's 25 games in era. What would we call that? Would we call it a window?
Not an era.
The Dennis Gilbert window?
It's the Gilbert... It's smaller than an era. I feel like it's also smaller than a window.
Than a stay? What about a stay?
It's the Gilbert segment.
Ah, the segment.
The segment,
yes,
maybe.
Segment, literally, because 25 games, we go, our segment goes 25 minutes.
Yeah.
There it is, Joe.
Era is a long time.
Era's, I think, years.
The only thing above an era is like eon.
Decades.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah. Span.
The Gilbert
spam. Do we care for real? Do we actually care that?
I mean,
it was a little weird, right? I probably wouldn't have made that decision, but the Sabres create a tribute video that they played during the break, as they would often do when a player's back, and it's Cousins and Gilbert for Ottawa. Cousins, who was here for 5 years and played hundreds of games for the Sabres, and Gilbert, who was here for 1 year and played 26 games. And was it 50-50 that they split the video? Or 75-25?
75-20.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm uncomfortable putting percentages on it.
Okay.
To be honest.
So we shouldn't care, right?
I feel like the fact that we are talking percentages it's uncomfortable for me. But.
Yeah. The Gilbert trial, the chat is already
yes, they're fired up already. Love it.
Yeah, morning to the chat. Oh man. You have no idea. The bullpen, they're in here yelling at each other before we've even gone on the air.
Buddy, after the show, I mean, there was a full tweet thread about, who's going to win in our 40-yard dash race. A lot of good takes, some bad ones.
And a poll that is absolutely ridiculous that sees you 60% thinking you're going to beat me in a 40-yard dash.
Anyways, people are realizing, they're like, one guy was an athlete, the other guy hosts a radio show.
I was, a recreational athlete.
I
wouldn't give myself more than that.
Not to be dismissed.
I was on the varsity football team, but snap count wasn't very high. We'll go with recreational athlete. With that being said, we'll do that at some point. Give me a week. Give me a few days.
Yeah, we got to get you cleared first.
Yeah,
we got to get you cleared.
I'm not risking my entire golf calendar on.
I wouldn't either. I actually I went to the place where I go get stretched yesterday. Went to PT. You actually,
he's already doing the work over here.
I impromptu scheduled a stretch
locker.
and PT after the conversation yesterday. So
I think random drug test maybe before we get rolling here. Aaron Ekblad recently had that happen. Let's do it. Oh, we'll do it. We're going to do a 40-yard dash.
When I clearly win by a couple steps, people are like, Gary needs to get randomly drug tested. He's juicing. He juiced for the
40-yard dash.
dash.
I don't even think that would help you, probably.
No, if anything, I think it would
strength.
add some water weight or whatever.
HGH.
I don't need any more. I don't need any more weight.
Anyways, good morning. It's Jeremy and Joe, Nate in. We will get to a lot today. The Sabres game, of course, from last night. It also, speaking of the Sabres, it's a fun little anniversary for the Sabres that we'll get to in a little bit. An anniversary that is near and dear to my heart, but that a little bit later on. The big news from yesterday, I think, well, you tell me, league-wide, it's probably that the Giants signed Russell Wilson. And that they are showing their desperation at quarterback. Which, fair, right? Is it even fair? They have Jameis Winston in the building already. Should they have felt like they also need Russell Wilson on top of Jameis Winston?
Yeah,
it's a weird move.
It's definitely a weird move.
When you already have Winston, at least.
And here's the thing, too, is I'm not sure it really takes them out of contention to draft a quarterback. But or how about this? It shouldn't. If they liked Shedeur Sanders yesterday at 2 o'clock, they should still like him this morning at 6:09. Like that, I don't think that should change anything. But I think what it does signal is they are in arguably the worst position of any team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Outside of the Cleveland Browns.
It's those two. The teams that draft 2 and 3, they're really being punished because there's no second quarterback in this draft that is worth that pick. I saw a mock draft yesterday where the Giants actually trade back into the first round and grab Shedeur Sanders at 27. So there are some that think he's going to the end of the first round, at least. I haven't seen many that think he falls out of the first round.
I think a lot of people are talking Jackson. Here's the thing. There's a lot of... I want to say a lot of momentum. There is, I think, at least a notable amount of momentum that Jackson Dart looks like a guy that's going to get drafted in the back end of the first. Mm-hmm. I don't view Jackson Dart. I don't think there's a scenario where Jackson Dart goes ahead of Shedeur Sanders. Right? I mean, I don't think.
Probably. I would bet Sanders goes first.
Before the two.
Of the two.
I think for me, this is the tough part if you're the Giants. If you're Joe Shane, this is the tough part about the NFL is they really they had no choice but to I don't know that I love the way they handled the Daniel Jones situation, to be honest. That was your making, your decision, and then midway through the season last year when it was going predictably bad, you pulled the rug, and you didn't really have a good plan behind Daniel Jones. Part of this is not the makings of or the because of the lack of talent at the top end of this quarterback class. It's how it's a little bit of how we looked at how the Bills have been building the wide receiver room over the last couple of years. Is you had Diggs and Davis, and you didn't really backload it. You did not prepare for those guys moving on. And if you're the Giants, the Giants went into last season feeling like, okay, well, we just got rid of Saquon Barkley, and we're on Hard Knocks, and it kind of feels like the coach and GM are on a hot seat. They might not make it through the season. DeVito in a coming off of an ACL, Drew Lock, and then coming off an ACL, Daniel Jones. You guys, they had no other plan at that position. And then they come into this offseason, and the plan is, well, Rodgers is the plan. Holy cow. It's just so, I don't know, I guess I look at, and I should figure this, but, the Brian Gaine, era in Houston lasted 1 year.
Yeah.
It didn't go
Very
that
quick.
well in Houston for Brian Gaine.
Yeah.
He comes back to Buffalo. Joe Shane leaves, and year one looks great. I mean, year one looked great for them. Did Dable win Coach of the Year?
Dable won Coach of the Year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they went to the playoffs, whatever, with Daniel Jones.
And won a playoff game.
Since then, the roster building, the decisions, and to be honest, and to be clear, I think the right decision was moving on from Saquon Barkley. So I don't look at that as a negative or a takeaway for Joe Shane and Brian Dable, because I think that was the right decision. But I don't know where it is a franchise without a direction, and it's been that way for a decade plus. And at least the Cleveland Browns, you can look at it and say, well, they really tried to go all in with the quarterback, and they got hoodwinked. They got bamboozled. Like, he was bad, and they signed a bad quarterback to a really large contract, and he hasn't been able to stay on the field.
Yeah.
That is like, you could look at it and say, that is one thing. This dismantled everything. If Deshaun Watson was the Deshaun Watson of 5 years ago, I think there's a good chance Cleveland's pretty damn good. And you're probably overlooking a lot of why they did the move and what they did it in despite of, just because he's good. That's what happens in pro sports. But there's not really one thing. There's not one unraveling move that the Giants have done. It has been a slow bleed, and they had a one-season sample size where you thought, maybe Dable really can coach. Maybe Shane can do this. And now I think one of them, I think Shane's destined to be back here in a year, and Dable's probably going to be back in the offensive coordinator game. Dable's done enough, to me, damage to his professional reputation. I wonder if he's got to go back to the college game. I wonder that.
I think he would still get an offensive coordinator job in the NFL, but maybe. I agreed when they got rid of Barkley. This, by the way, this is funny. This was a preamble to the setup. We'll get to Diggs, too, in New England. But we did get rolling on the Giants here a little bit. I liked when they moved on from Barkley, and for the very same reason that what Joe Shane said in that Hard Knocks clip from last year, which was basically, we need to find out if our quarterback's good or not.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like that was misguided because he had been there for 5 seasons already. You should have a pretty good idea of how good Daniel Jones is after 5 years, and only one of them actually went that well. And it went okay. He was pretty much a game manager. He had 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. The year that he was good and made the playoffs and won a playoff game. Low event football for Daniel Jones in the 1 year that he was good. You should have known, but okay, you want to go a year and really find out. So let's not overpay Barkley. We're going to give him neighbors. We're going to build up the offensive line. That's what they did. And it didn't go well. To your point, I think they should have known how likely it was that when we try to find out what Daniel Jones really is, that it's not going to go well for us. We're going to find out he's not it, and we need to be ready with a plan of action to replace him. And they didn't have that, and then they got to this offseason, and they still didn't really have that. I've got a couple of friends that are Giants fans, and all they want is just Arch Manning. They want this team to stay at the bottom, and they want to get Arch Manning, or they want to get one of these quarterbacks at the top next year. Not to rush it now and pick Sanders or to pick Jackson Dart or whoever. But here's the thing. I actually feel like with Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston at quarterback, I don't think they're great, but that team could win 7 or 8 games.
100%.
The roster is not that bad. There are holes, but there are good players around.
You're better off
roster.
going with Tommy. This is the conundrum that franchises like the Giants face.
Yeah.
Which is, what is middling accomplishing?
Right.
What is you? Because it feels like the coach and GM are lame ducks.
I think one of them probably has to win, right?
The coach,
you could be
more
right.
than the GM.
Yeah,
but
if they won 5 games this year, I don't think Dable survives that. I think Shane could. Shane could get another kick at it.
Shane could.
Another
because
coach
he never got
hire.
to pick a quarterback.
No, he didn't. That is really why I wonder about it. They haven't got their own guy. You know, I tend to think, reading about the Giants and just thinking about how Shane and Dable went through it here. When Shane was here, Dable wasn't here yet. He comes in at the end of this, sequence. When the Bills make the playoffs, their first year with Tyrod Taylor, they did not get hung up on, we should re-sign him. And even as a bridge quarterback, that wasn't in their plans. It was, no, we're trading him. We're trading him away immediately because we're moving on to our next guy. We had a good game manager, and we need to be better. The Giants Shane, Dable, they would have gone through that experience and known, just because we made the playoffs with a guy that throws 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions does not mean we should lock ourselves into that guy for the long term. And then what did they do? They locked themselves into that guy for the long term. That's where I tend to think that was a lot of ownership. That ownership wanted to keep Daniel Jones.
That's right.
And that might be a big reason why they're not fired right now. Because the owner knows, I stuck them with that guy. I'm not going to fire them because Daniel Jones sunk them. I'm going to give them another shot at it. But that's what they're trying to figure out right now. What if there is no other shot at it? What if there is no quarterback that you like in this offseason? Do you take Sanders just because, that buys us time? And we'll see if we could figure him out. They might, Shane deep down might think it's better off for this organization and for me if we sit here at the bottom, we play, Drew Lock at quarterback, Tommy DeVito, just a nobody at quarterback all year long, and we win 4 games, and then we're at the top of the draft next year, and that's when we make our pick. And he might not do it because he's not sure he'll have the job by then. That if that sequence plays out and they do only win 4 games, no matter who's at quarterback, I'm not going to be the guy making that selection. Very interesting context and circumstance to where they're at. So they get Wilson probably just to win as many games as they can this year. And good luck. That's that division now with the Super Bowl champion Eagles and the Commanders, who look awesome. And that's the quarterback you might want over anybody else in the NFC right now.
And the Cowboys will be better. I mean, they're going to have Dak Prescott
back.
Dak's back.
Like, that's probably the toughest division in football.
I forget that Brian Schottenheimer is their coach. Holy crap.
In Dallas? Yeah, yes men. They love their yes men in Dallas.
Unbelievable.
So, Wilson to New York. So that definitely locks in Rodgers to Pittsburgh, right? There's nowhere else he could go, right? He could retire.
I saw something that said maybe he waits. Maybe he just pauses everything, forces things to play out a little bit, wait till after the draft, and see where Minnesota is again. I think he wants to play in Minnesota.
So Minnesota called Tannehill, right? That's the report.
Yep.
They probably want a veteran guy next to McCarthy. Not just because McCarthy has never played. He also has this injury that he had surgery on and then had a setback in the middle of last year, had to go in for another surgery. But is Rodgers the type of guy that they want next to McCarthy all next year? If you're Minnesota, I could see why that does not sound like a good idea at all. What would be, to me, be the funniest outcome right now of what's left? is Rodgers leaving the Steelers at the altar and just deciding, he's a quirky guy. He's a weird dude. He might just decide, you know what? I'm good. I'm done. I'm going to walk away. I had an Achilles injury a couple years ago. I played one more year. I came back. I'm fine. I'm done here. So he walks away. Leaves the Steelers at the altar for nothing left, really.
Yeah.
There's nothing left. Wilson's gone. The Giants grabbed two of them, Winston and Wilson. And I don't know where else they would turn. It's got for them. Rodgers almost gains leverage on Pittsburgh because, hey.
Oh, he certainly gains leverage.
You're not, sure, the Giants are gone, but you're not bidding against the Giants anymore. Because Wilson is off the table, you're going to pay me $35 million or else I'm leaving. I'm retiring.
Yeah.
And then good luck with Mason Rudolph as your quarterback this year.
Right.
So Steelers might actually be put in a tough spot. The other team that we'll talk about today at 8 o'clock, Jonathan Peterlin's going to join us from The Fan in Cleveland. You said before we got going here, or maybe you did, it was on the air, that the Giants were the most desperate team, worst quarterback situation in the league, and Cleveland's the other one, right?
Yes.
Because right now, their opening day starter, the favorite is probably Kenny Pickett. He's there.
Is that right?
He's on the team.
Who else is? Right, Jameis
Watson,
is on.
but he's not.
They traded, they traded what's his name for Pickett.
They traded who for Pickett?
Dorian
Thompson Robinson?
Yeah, the kid from UCLA.
DTR?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not there anymore. It's just Watson and Pickett. That's their roster of quarterback right now. Watson and Pickett.
Yeah, so
it's going to be a staring contest between Cleveland and New York in this draft. Who's going to be the desperate team that takes the quarterback that might not be worth the second or third pick?
I still think whether it's day of draft, June, Kirk Cousins is going to be in Cleveland.
You got Cousins in Cleveland?
There's no way Atlanta hangs on to him. They don't really have another backup, though. That's the thing. Well, don't they have...
they'd have to sign somebody, I think.
Don't they have, what's his name? They used to play for Washington?
Heineke?
They might have Heineke.
I think he went somewhere else.
Did he?
Yeah, Kansas City.
Okay.
I think.
We could, listen, if
Minshew went to Kansas City.
They need a slightly used Mitchell Trubisky.
You know what we need in here? Once upon a time, we had the quarterback big board.
Oh,
we
yeah.
had all the backup quarterbacks of the league.
Sure.
I might need that because where is Taylor Heineke right now? Is a great question.
Where in the world is Taylor Heineke?
He is not in Atlanta. It's Penix, it's Cousins, and it's someone named Emory Jones.
Oh, Emory, yeah.
Taylor Heineke is on the L.A. Chargers.
Okay.
Still?
Oh, that's right. He's their primary backup now.
Okay.
Yeah. Over
he re-signed there?
Over, what's his name?
Billy Volek.
Jeez, what a name. No, I was thinking, now...
They have another backup?
Now you're getting Easton Stick. But you just unlocked, some backup, whatever, the little spot in my brain that holds information about, old backup quarterback names.
Yeah. Maybe I'll put together some backup quarterback trivia later, and we can
Billy
have
Volek
some quarterback backup quarterback rando.
It's not as good as Charlie Whitehurst, though. Because
those
that guy had
are both good Charger backups.
Aura. He had the wide sleeves.
Yeah.
The one wristband. Just the aura with the grizzly beard, the long hair.
Yes.
The cotton chin strap. Oh, my God.
I do believe he has a nickname. I'm going to go to Pro Football Reference because...
The workhorse from...
No. Well, you're about Dylan Cousins.
Whitehurst?
No, that's not the nickname. Oh, yeah, here. Okay, so it is official. It's on his reference page. Charlie Whitehurst's nickname is Clipboard Jesus. Clipboard Jesus.
This show is going to be electric today.
Yeah. We'll get some backup quarterback rando in a little bit later on. The Sabres win last night over the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa fans losing their mind, I saw on social media last night, that they lost all 3 meetings to the Sabres this year and scored 1 goal at even strength in those 3 games. Ottawa did. So the Sabres get the win last night. We'll chat about that. There's an anniversary for the Sabres today that I want to get to. And get your phone calls on this, 803-0550. Stefon Diggs to New England. 2-part question. 1, do you care enough to be mad at it? And 2, does this change your opinion of New England at all? I am thinking a lot more about... Diggs is only part of it. New England and their ability to challenge the Bills in the AFC East. I still don't think it's coming around the corner.
He doesn't move the needle for me at all.
Well, let's get to that because New England, I like him a lot from early last year in Houston. It's just, does he have that left after ripping his knee apart? We'll get to that. 8030550
if Charlie Batch was throwing him the ball, maybe.
Charlie Batch. And you can mix in your backup quarterback, Rando, throughout the day. We might just mix it into every conversation that there is.
I mean, that would be a very John Kitna thing to do.
Oh, here we go. Off and running. Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary. This is WGR.
Over the Ottawa Senators last night, goals were scored by Jack Quinn, Jacob Bernard-Docker, his first as a Sabre, and Tage Thompson. James Reimer starts once again and gets another win, stopping 30 of 32 shots. The win also gets Lindy Ruff his 600th regular season win as the head coach of the Buffalo Sabres. He now becomes the second coach in NHL history to win 600 or more games with a single franchise. Sabres back in action tomorrow, hosting the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 7 o'clock puck drop. Big news in free agency yesterday in the AFC East. Former Bills wide receiver Stefon Diggs signs with the New England Patriots. The Patriots and Diggs agree to a 3-year, $69 million deal with $26 million guaranteed. Diggs played 7 games for the Houston Texans last year before getting hurt, tearing his ACL in Week 8. He had 47 receptions and 496 yards and 3 touchdowns in that time. Also, another big free agency move yesterday. Former Steeler Russell Wilson signs a 1-year deal worth up to $21 million with the New York Giants. Hey, join Mike Shope and Sal Capaccio as they broadcast live from the Ride for Roswell kickoff event today at Roswell's campus. This is your chance to pick up your fundraising materials and mingle while enjoying food and drinks. You can even see where all the funds raised go with our exclusive tour of Roswell Park's research labs and facilities. Kickoff event starts at 5 p.m. and all are welcome. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of business.
Plays it back. Here's a shot. Scores! Welcome, Jacob Bernard-Docker with a dart against his former team. Ties the game at 2. The Canmore cannon let it rip, and the game is tied.
Jacob Bernard-Docker scores against his former team. Congrats if you had him anytime goal scorer last night. Dylan Cousins does not score.
He did not. I convinced everybody. We had a golf league yesterday last night. So I got there right around 6 o'clock, and I convinced, 9 guys to all put money down on Dylan Cousins' first goal scorer and then anytime goal scorer.
Yeah.
And luckily, I left before the end of the game, so they couldn't yell at me.
I also watched that game from a golf simulator.
You did. That's right.
The old dojo. That same question was asked in the room. Cousins anytime goal to plus 240, right? I'm like, no. No. Sucker's bet.
And here I am, the sucker.
Plus 350 is what he normally is. He's plus 240 just because he's playing against the Sabres.
Yeah.
Bernard-Docker would have been a lot longer odds. By the way, that was one of your moments of the game brought to you by Firth Jewelers. For all the moments in your life, go forth to Firth.
Can I say that I think I'm ready? 12 games left? 11 for the Sabres?
It is... Sure.
I would, let's say...
It's one of the two.
I like 12 because it's a even number. And it's a dozen. It's got a word.
It is 12, by the way.
Okay, it's 12. Perfect. I need to see 12 games of Zack Benson with Tage Thompson.
Yeah, great pass to set up the game.
But it's not even... It was the entire shift.
He dug it out.
It was just the whole shift. And then there was a couple of other moments in the game where he's just... Is he not exact? I would say this. He is one of one in terms of what they have on the team in terms of roles. There isn't really anybody that goes to the areas that Zack Benson's, which we've known for a little while. Yeah. He gets in front of the net. He wins battles. He seeks contact. Mm-hmm. And although he's not the fastest skater on the ice,
that I do think is improving, by the way. I'm noticing.
A little bit.
I'm noticing.
I noticed it yesterday
more than he was back checking on the penalty kill.
I noticed it yesterday too.
Yeah.
I also think they need to find, and this might just be, did Krebs sign a 1 year, right? A qualifying offer 1 year.
Yes, I think so.
I need Kozak in that position full time. Fourth line center. That's what I would like to see that as a full time solution. But my point being, I think. Part of the reason everybody talks about Benson's numbers not really matching a lot of the underlying.
Krebs has a 2-year deal, by the way.
I think just as he's not playing on scoring lines. He's not being asked to play on scoring lines.
That's part of it. That's definitely part of it. He is very, very curious to me. I love watching him play. It's incredible to me how smart a player he is at his age.
Yeah.
His hockey sense, his spacing, he is always in the right spot. It is unbelievable to me that player who is NHL Edge stats, all the player tracking, in the middle of the season, there was a chart of like the slowest players in the NHL, and he's on that list.
Yep.
One of the slowest players in the NHL right now. And he is 5'10", 170.
And
that might be generous.
5'10" is generous.
Yeah. So I've got a guy that isn't big at all, isn't fast, and he makes the impact that he does. Right, he's not putting up points. But I was looking the other day for Locked On Sabres, looking at Ryan McLeod, trying to figure out like what his next contract's going to be. And what's the story about Ryan McLeod? He's scoring more this year, but why is he here? He's a great defensive center. So I go to Evolving Hockey. I'm looking for like some advanced stats on his defensive game. So I go to Even Strength Defense, which is one of their ratings on even strength, just how you are, your defensive impact at even strength. And I'm looking for McLeod. And before I can even scroll down, I haven't even categorized it by Buffalo yet. It's the whole league. And there's Zack Benson is the 8th best defensive forward in the entire NHL. Like a spot above Barkov. 98th percentile for his defensive numbers on that front. And that's not surprising. That lines up with what we're seeing defensively. But right, he's not scoring yet, and he's not putting up big points. I do think some of that is probably who he's playing with. I do think some of that is he has got to get faster and bigger.
Yeah.
And when he gets stronger, I think his shot would probably get a little bit better, and then he'll be able to finish more of these chances.
Not convinced he's ever really going to be like a perennial 20-goal scorer. I think he could be more like in the 15 to 17 goal range every year, but be a guy that gets 45 assists.
That's why he's curious to me. I don't know what to make of his ceiling. I think you're probably, what you just said is probably more likely, that he's not a perennial 20-goal scorer. Maybe he's a 50, 60-point guy because he gets a lot of assists. I still feel like I want to be open to him being like an elite forward, though, because he is that good when it comes to all the extra stuff. But he's not going to get to what I'm talking about, like a point-per-game player, unless he gets way faster and way stronger. And he's 19, so that could happen. That's why I think he's very, very tough to predict right now. In most instances, he hasn't played in the NHL yet. He's only here because of his brain, basically.
Yeah. And that's the thing you really don't teach. I mean, I also...
Yeah.
He is...
They joke about it on that there was a... the Sabres do, like, they're mic'd up, whatever, during practice. And, like, a month ago, they had Benson mic'd up. And he's, in the middle of the clip. He's standing in front of the net. And Yoki Haru is chirping him like, "Oh, you're gonna tip that puck with your hockey IQ." Like the guys on the team know about his hockey IQ, and they're ribbing him about it. So I don't know. I don't know what his ceiling is. I want to believe he could be a top line player though. And as soon as next year, you might not want that though because you need this team to get going. And do you want to put the 20-year-old on the first line, or do you want to have somebody else that you've acquired in the offseason?
I just would like to see what it and I think it was Kulik, Tage, and him yesterday.
That was the line, yeah. Yep.
Listen, is that an ideal first line in the NHL? Probably not, but I don't know.
It could be in 4 years.
I'm also really interested in what Kulik's going to be. He's struggled to stay consistently on the ice with injuries this year.
Yeah.
But man, when he's in the lineup, he's also looked, and the move to center has been really good for him.
Yeah.
That's a young line.
These are the types of conversations, though, I don't want them having right now. Because
they can't keep having these conversations.
Because this is the same thing they've been doing for at least 5 years, which is, we don't need to go do anything major in the offseason because all these young guys are going to do it. Kulik's going to take a step up, and Benson's going to take a giant step up. I am confident and hopeful that that's going to happen for at least those two right now. But we had the same conversations 3 years ago about Jack Quinn, J.J. Peterka, and Dylan Cousins. And, not a total strikeout. Peterka looks great. He's scoring every game right now. But
Peterka just has these like blocks of games where he just goes completely cold and completely quiet.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he plays in 65 games this year. He's second in the team in points, first in forwards in assists. Does it feel that way?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think he's a very good player.
I think
he's
he
a
is
very
too.
good player. But
I think in what we're seeing is what we saw a lot of last year, which is just so much tweaking and moving of the lineup. And I'm not here to tell you that I don't think other teams do this. Even the really good teams do this. But there is at least a semblance of continuity throughout your lineup. You're not switching all three guys around all the time. But injury has forced that a little bit. But I think JJ, I would definitely say Jack Quinn, but there's other things going on with Jack Quinn. With Peterka, isn't he a little bit a victim of he just hasn't had consistent line mates that he's building chemistry with?
Well, his consistent line mate was Cousins, actually.
Well, it was Cousins. I feel
Cousins
like it's more tough
for 3 years, and now, right, it's being a little more mixed. Maybe it's going to end up being Tuck more often. That too could be a factor, that the two guys that were lost in the wilderness were always together.
Yes.
Quinn and Cousins. They were always together. They were always the most common line mates of each other when they played. I don't know. I don't know what to do with him. But
this team is probably going to end up with, we'll see what happens over the next 12. Maybe they end up with 230 goal scorers. What a change this is from 2023.
Yep.
What a dramatic change. I mean, they had, 5 guys that scored 30 goals in 2023? Or is it 6?
They had a few. Skinner did it. Thompson did it. Tuck did it. And Cousins did it. Did Olofsson do it too? Olofsson got like 28. That's probably it. That's still double from what you had. Lindy, by the way, getting his 600th win yesterday.
Olofsson had 28, Cousins 31, Skinner 35, Alex Tuck 36, Tage 47.
Okay. So Lindy gets his 600th win yesterday. He's the second 600th win with the Sabres. Excuse me. Second coach in NHL history to win 600 games with one organization. Have you thought at all about? I thought about this a little bit yesterday because of the milestone that he got. About what you think whether he's gonna be the coach next year or not.
Did you hear his quote after the game?
No.
He got asked, basically, do you want to be back? Like, are you going to come back?
He got that question yesterday, and
he basically said, I think that, I can fix anything, and I think that's what's made this season so disappointing.
He said, I quote, I really want to get this right.
Yes.
Okay.
So I would say he's back. Unless, I almost think universally, even
if Adams
or not,
isn't the GM,
I think he's here.
I think you're probably right. 803-0550 is the phone number. We're going to get to Diggs and New England. Change anything for the Patriots in your mind? Or is it just unveiling maybe some dormant New England? They might be on their way. We'll get to that when we come back here at 7 o'clock. A little trivia along the way as well, too. We got our backup quarterback fixin' so far. We should have to name at least one backup quarterback in every single segment today.
Yeah,
so I will go.
We need some trivia. We need like a list of career backups with with the most touchdowns.
A certain list that has a guy like Charlie Fry on it.
Yep.
For instance.
Oh, yeah.
803-0550 is the phone number. Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary. This is WGR.
Looks like it's going to gamble now with Washington down by 1 and just over 4 minutes to go. Morrissey retreats. Van Riemsdyk is still up in the play, lost his hockey stick. Nice pass. Ovechkin scores! Alex Ovechkin, 889. Washington 2-all.
6 away. Ovi is 6 away. That goal was to tie it.
Didn't quite get the hat trick we were hoping he would get last night, so that he could get another hat trick tonight or tomorrow. I think they play, and then they play the Sabres Friday.
Yeah. No, he didn't score a hat trick. Some guy named Jack Eichel scored a hat trick last night, I think.
Who?
The Capitals now 102 points, by the way, on the season.
Crazy.
That also is as incredible. We'll get to football. The Capitals were old and declining, and Ovechkin, it was all about the goal race. It was all about just going for his record. And not only is he going to get the record, if not this year, at the very early stages of next year, they're also number 1 in the NHL. They're in first place.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And he's maybe the biggest reason why. He's on like a 50-goal pace.
He missed a month.
Right.
Imagine what his numbers look like if he doesn't miss a month this year.
He'd have it.
Oh, he doesn't have it.
He has 36 goals in 55 games. He'd have it.
Unbelievable. And last year it looked like, all right, the age is finally catching up to him. And then he switched to like Coke Zero, and now he's just, he's back to being the man.
Is he more incredible that he's doing it like this because, well, like you said, maybe he took this more seriously this last offseason, but all the guys that are aging like and playing this well this late.
Fine wine.
Yeah, like Brady plays into his 40s and he doesn't eat strawberries or drink beer. And LeBron plays into his 40s and it's because he spends $1.5 million on his body every year, and like everything is geared towards keeping that thing right. And Crosby's still playing well, but it's the conditioning is off the charts. And here's Ovechkin, who kind of looks like he's aged.
The last of
a lot.
I'm going to say this. Ovechkin is the last of a dying breed. The athlete that smokes cigarettes on the sidelines and drinks beer out of a Gatorade bottle in the locker room between periods, like, he is the last of the image I'm sure our parents have of like Kenny Stabler on the sidelines or like, you know what I mean? Like, they're just, it's a different era of sports and conditioning. We know more about.
Yeah.
And what makes it so impressive is Ovechkin is doing this in the era where it's not when Gretzky did it, when, you know, let's be honest, they weren't the most highly tuned athletes.
Correct.
That's what makes it to me more impressive.
In comparison.
I mean, I don't need the 6 more goals to need me to convince he's the greatest goal scorer ever. I mean, he is. Point blank period. Greatest goal scorer ever.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for a little while.
Yeah, for me, it has been a while.
The stats just put the stamp on it.
He has 11 games, it looks like, left to score 6 goals. He's got Pittsburgh in the final game of the season. I continue to think that's the... How do you want him to do it? Do you want it at home and not care about who the opponent is? Do you want an empty netter? Or, like, I am...
Definitely don't want an empty netter.
See, I've been warmed up to that because empty netter from like your own zone eliminates the possibility of a review altogether.
Yeah,
you can't challenge for offside because he hasn't entered the zone, and you can't challenge for goalie interference because there's no goalie.
I kind of just need a patented power play left dot
from his office
smoke show slap shot.
Yeah.
And the patented celebration and the entire team, and then a bunch of stuff's thrown on the ice. Like that's what I'd like to. That's how I'd like it to go down.
And at home would be pretty cool. He only has 4 home games left
out of the 11 they've got.
Yeah, a lot of road games. They play the Sabres on Sunday, and that's not going to happen. Okay. So really, there's 2 games he could do it at home at because he's probably not scoring 6 in the next 4. He could, but he's probably not going to. So then you've got Carolina on April 10th. And then you've got Columbus on April 13th. And if it doesn't happen in one of those 2, it's probably happening on the road. It could happen in Pittsburgh, which would be pretty funny. His rival of his career. But I think the moment would be pretty cool if it did happen in Pittsburgh. The handshake with Crosby after, and you get the photo you want, at least. But I think they'll probably want him to do it at home. 803-0550, the phone number. Okay, when we come back, let's get to Diggs and let's get to the Patriots. How much does it change them at all? Or were you already thinking about them challenging in the future against the Bills? Because they got some things that are going pretty well this offseason. 803-0550 is the phone number. Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary, this is WGR.
Good morning. The Buffalo Sabres spoiled Dylan Cousins' return to Buffalo last night, winning 3-2 over the Ottawa Senators. Sabres goal scorers Jack Quinn, Jacob Bernard-Docker notching his first goal as a Sabre against his former team, and Tage Thompson with the game winner. James Reimer started once again for the Sabres, stopping 30 of 32 shots. Dylan Cousins did record a point in the game. He had an assist on Brady Tkachuk's opening goal in the game. The win also marks a milestone for Sabres head coach Lindy Ruff. He now has 600 regular season wins as the head coach of the Buffalo Sabres. With that win, Ruff now becomes the second coach in NHL history to win 600 or more games with a single franchise, only behind former New York Islanders head coach Al Arbor, who has 740 wins. Sabres are back in action tomorrow, hosting the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 7 o'clock puck drop. One more quarterback off the free agent market yesterday as former Steeler Russell Wilson signs a one-year deal worth up to $21 million with the New York Giants. The Giants also signed Jameis Winston to a 2-year, $8 million deal this past weekend. Another big free agency move from last night. Former Bills wide receiver Stefon Diggs is back in the AFC East, but this time with the New England Patriots. The two sides agreed to a 3-year, $69 million deal with $26 million guaranteed. Diggs played last season with the Houston Texans before tearing his ACL in Week 8 against the Indianapolis Colts. In 8 games, Diggs had 47 receptions for 496 yards and 3 touchdowns. Hey, join Mike Shope and Sal Capaccio today as they broadcast live from the Ride for Roswell kickoff event at Roswell's campus. This is your chance to pick up your fundraising materials and mingle while enjoying some food and drinks. You can even see where all the funds raised go with an exclusive tour of Roswell Park's research labs and facilities. Kickoff event starts at 5 p.m. and all are welcome. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of business. I'm Josh Schmidt for WGR Sports Radio 550.
A bad team to be good the next year. My pick is New England.
The Patriots recipe is exactly the same as Washington last year. The Washington thing did not make sense. Then you look at it, it's like terrible coaching staff. All of a sudden they had a good coaching staff. They all of a sudden had a good quarterback. The year before they didn't. They spent a bunch of money on free agents. They did well in the draft and they played an easy schedule. So we know what the recipe is. We look at it every year. It's reasonable to go from 4 wins to 10. Like we see it every year. We're always like, oh, who saw this coming? We always see it coming. This happens every year, and it's always about a schedule and a coach and a QB.
Bill Simmons on the Patriots. Colin Cowherd as well. They are maybe going to be one of these,
plucky teams. We use the term plucky.
Sure, I was going to say like the team everyone loves to pick to go from bad to good. What's the word for that?
Worst to first?
Yeah, but they're not going to first.
Most improved?
Yeah. Everyone's going to pick them. More people are going to pick them than they probably should, but there might be some good reasons why.
The Patriots are going to find a way to make the Jets underrated. Watch. Watch.
Okay.
That will be the conversation like August 15th on FS1. Are the Jets underrated now?
Mm-hmm. I participated in reverse AFC power rankings yesterday with Mike Shope, and I believe we put the Jets third from the bottom. So, New England signs Stefon Diggs.
Yep.
Let's start with the emotional angle of it.
Sure.
How do you expect Bills fans to, like, this will turn it back up on Diggs and, like, the Diggs hate, if you will, the fact that he is now in the division and signing with New England? Like, I personally don't have any ill will towards him going there. I don't even know that he really truly wanted to go there.
He probably just couldn't say no to the money.
Got paid $69 million.
Yeah, 26 guaranteed.
On a multi-year contract off a torn ACL.
Yeah.
I
got more money than Chris Godwin per year.
They basically handed him a blank check, which was the story about New England and Godwin. They finally got a receiver to say yes to them after 5 years of trying Diggs before, and Cooper and Ayuk. And Ayuk, remember, I think part of the story was they had offered San Francisco what they wanted.
Ayuk said nope.
But Ayuk said, I'm not signing an extension there, so that killed the trade. So they couldn't get anybody to say yes to them. They finally got Diggs to do it. But again, the context is he's coming off a torn ACL. We're late in free agency here, and he's at an advanced age. and you gave him $70 million over 3 years.
Yeah.
So
it's a heist.
Do we care? Like, is anyone extra mad at him because he went to New England? Or is it just going to be natural? The fact that he's going to be in the division means that we're going to see him twice a year, and he's going to come back to Buffalo once a year, and he'll probably catch some passes, and he's a fiery dude, so maybe he'll jaw at the Bills, and it'll kind of naturally become, a thing, him playing the Bills.
Well, first let me say this. And part of this could just be the bad blood that the fan base currently has with the team. But the city that still gets up and gets out to boo Jack Eichel is going this might have to mean that it's Bills Patriots home opener, like in prime time, like the Sunday night football or the Monday night game of Week 1. Because
is that good? Bills hosting Patriots on like Monday night
to start the year.
Division right out of the gates.
Yeah, I think that he will be relentlessly booed every time he touches the ball, when he runs out of the stadium, out of the tunnel. Yes. So let's just get that. That's what I think will and should happen. By the way, here's my take on Diggs. Is I don't know that I feel differently today or yesterday after the signing than I did necessarily when the trade to Houston first happened. But where I'm now at with Diggs is I get the sense or feel like everything other teams, other people, national media had said about him that everyone in this city defended him against, which was the reputation of being a diva, being a locker room cancer, and, quote, character issues. And I almost still hesitate to get to he has character issues or flaws. But I have a really hard time accepting the fact that what he did, how he did it, to a team that is firmly in a Super Bowl window, with him being a part of that, big part of that, and a team that rewarded him when they didn't have to, gave him a huge contract extension, and had to bail the first year it kicked in. And the things he did, the distraction he became, all of this because they weren't doing enough to make him feel like they were serious about winning. They weren't doing enough for Diggs. He gets traded to Houston and lasts half the season, tears his ACL. That's not his fault. But doesn't it say a little something that Houston wasn't at all interested in bringing him back? And maybe the injury is part of it.
Well, and the money's probably a part of it,
they
too.
They immediately traded for Christian Kirk. So first move they could make, they got his replacement. First move they could do, we're replacing you.
They've never talked at all like anything. They've only talked about him as a leader glowingly.
Of course they did. Because what they wanted to do is the same thing any team that would have Diggs wants to do. Yeah. We want to make sure that what you guys are saying, here's proof that it's not true. Look at, he's a great teammate. He's this, he's that. Well, listen, you can post that stuff on Twitter in August, but when it came down to it, and you had an opportunity to bring him back, you with your number 2 receiver probably not slated to play this season, you said, nah, I'm good. We're good. Thank you. And just this whole concept of this is about winning. I need you guys to prove to me you're really all about winning. And then you sign with the Patriots?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. They gave you something you couldn't refuse. I will never hammer an athlete for taking the money, especially when the money's probably way above whatever they were bidding against themselves. No one else was going to give anything close to that to Stefon Diggs.
Yeah.
No one is nearly as desperate for the position as the New England Patriots. But, man, it just comes from a place where I'm thinking to myself, what a fraud. I mean, he's a fraud. Because you're going to sit here and talk about it's everybody else's fault that we haven't won. Everybody else's fault. Even though every single playoff game, I'm a no-show. Every big moment that required Stefon Diggs to be Stefon Diggs, he no-showed. drops in the biggest moments, and then blaming his quarterback and showing him up every opportunity he could.
He did that one time. In front of everybody, he did it one time.
After he did the drop, he went like this to his quarterback. Like, hey, you missed me.
Yeah. If that's what you think, that's what that was.
I think what it comes down to is it's just why emotional attachment to athletes and thinking they're these people that, who they are on surface level. I just, it rubbed me so wrong yesterday thinking about the fact of the context of why he acted the way he did here. In a perfect situation, a team and organization catered to him. He was the biggest thing this organization had done in 2 decades, was trading for Stefon Diggs. Yep. And they treated him that way. Rolled out the red carpet. Oh, you don't want to be at OTAs? Don't worry about it. No, you're good. Go do your stuff in the offseason. We don't care. Just come here and be a superstar. We love you. We'll defend you in the media. We'll get every opportunity we have to defend you, our fans, and our organization will. Well, and how you treated everybody here, including the teammates, because every teammate that played with Diggs last year, 2 years ago, this last summer, took an opportunity to basically say, yeah, this place is way better without him.
Yeah, but then the moment, man, you saw the reaction to those guys when they saw him for the first time when they came back to Houston. Like, Tyrell Shavers is almost in tears seeing Diggs again for the first time in Houston. The guy, the way I look back on it, and this is what I think New England is going to get from him for now, is what the other thing the Bills, you want to say tasked him to do, or the other thing he became, was he became the alpha of that room. Yeah. He became the leader of that room, his position group especially, but of the entire offense. Who was the guy against the Jets when Allen is sitting on the sidelines red-faced because he's throwing interception after interception that is coming over to him and giving him a pep talk like, come on, dude, let's go. You get into this game. Who's the guy that's coming over to him and being a leader in that moment? It was Diggs. But that moment got shared 1/100th of the amount of times that the Bengals moment got shared.
Because it was in the playoffs. And you're on the sidelines. Right. He's making it about himself.
And that's why I think he is definitely, there's no doubt, that there's enough smoke about it, that he's a lot to handle behind the scenes. But I think most of it comes from the fact that he wants to be the alpha of the room. He naturally is that type of personality.
It's not about winning. It's about him. He went to the only place.
That's the thing that's weird to me about this move. I'm not going to go all the way to call him a fraud, but I understand why you'd say that, because that's always how I've thought of him. That his biggest problem here was the guy just can't take not winning. Like, he is on a level of some of the greatest competitors ever where you just, it's almost to a fault. And in fact, in this instance, you might say it is. He just can't handle the losing. He's got to win. That's how I've thought of him, and that's how he has carried himself.
Tried to portray.
And then he got to free agency, and he went to New England, which I don't know that you got to work hard to say that they could be a good team, but you got to work very hard to say that they are anything near winning a Super Bowl. And that's supposed to be for him what it's all about. And you signed up for a team where a success is just squeaking into the playoffs.
I think that there is a greater desire to be the alpha than there is to win. And I view this now in hindsight to say this wasn't about his refusal to lose. It was about the hierarchy that he saw himself crumbling. He saw himself taking a back seat to the quarterback for the first time in his career here. And what did he do? Literally forced his way out. Made a team in a Super Bowl window take a $45 million dead cap hit. Because they'd rather pay that money than to have you on this team anymore. So to me, it just, and then a little thing for me is they went from a team that had like 8 captains to 2. I also don't think that's not something that also has a little bit of like Diggs dust.
I think you're not giving enough credit, though, to the Bills initiating a lot of that, in that there was a quote in a story from before the season, I'm forgetting who wrote it, that maybe it was Tim Graham, that, let me check that before I attribute that to him, that basically ownership wanted to see Allen become more of a leader.
Mm-hmm.
That they want to task him with that. So even if I could set aside all of Diggs' motivation to the side here for a moment and just know, well, he has been the leader of that room. He has been the guy. Like, again, he goes over to Allen and gives pep talks, not the other way around. If you want Allen to be more of the leader of that room, of that unit, then even if you don't care what Diggs is, what do you do? Or what Diggs wants, what do you do? You might trade him anyway. Because you might feel like Allen can never fully become that and become the full leader if the other guy who's been that is still in the room. He might cede to Diggs in that way. I think there is Bill's motivation on that front too, and I've always said that a lot of that was clear the deck so that Josh can be the guy.
Where in any other organization, find me one example, where a wide receiver has more to say about who can lead and when they can lead than Diggs in Buffalo. Did Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver of all time, the greatest, did he step on Steve Young when he took over for the greatest quarterback of all time previous? No, he didn't.
But it depends.
T.O. didn't even do that.
It depends on the type of personality you have at quarterback already, right? Like Allen, it would be easier for somebody to take that role of being the intense leader when the quarterback just wants to be one of the guys. And that has always been Allen's mantra really until this year, which was just 1/11th, one of the boys. It was not until this season where it really was, okay, you got to be more than that. You got to be more than just one of the guys.
But why does it take you removing another leader on your team in order for him to elevate? Why, in any scenario, would it not be, if you're a real leader on this team and you care about the success of your quarterback, would you have to, you couldn't put aside your own desire to be the alpha to prop up the most important player in the organization. Wherever he goes, whether it was in Minnesota or here or Houston, he will never be the most important player in an organization because he's not a quarterback.
Right.
That takes a little self-awareness.
Yeah, that does.
And the idea that the Bills looked at it as our only way to make Josh Allen a better leader is by getting rid of his best offensive weapon says way more about Diggs than it does about Allen. It says way more to me about the person there, because that's why I use the word fraud, is if it's really about winning, if it truly is the desire or the need to win, you absolutely do everything you can to prop up the quarterback, not do what he did.
Which was what?
Which was force his way out.
Again, I think that is overstated. I'm not saying he didn't want to go. The Bills got paid.
He spent the entire previous offseason.
The Bills
tweeting and being a distraction, not showing up and then showing up.
What I'm saying is if all of that didn't happen, they probably would have traded him anyway.
I disagree.
He was the least efficient wide receiver in football for 8 games, and someone came and offered them a second-round pick for a 30-year-old wide receiver. Who says no to that? I don't think
he's on the mark. I don't think anyone's reaching out to the Bills if the previous offseason didn't happen.
That might be the difference. That might be right.
No one's even reaching out because he would be entering year 2 of his extension.
But to me, there is enough argument that they cashed out. Aside all of this, they cashed out at the right time because he was aging. He was a player that it was becoming more and more clear he's got to move to the slot. And that's exactly what he did when he got to Houston. He's got to move to the inside because the wheels on those deep balls, Matt Harmon, when he charts all his route success rate, you started to see, instead of everything being in the green, those couple of routes at the top are starting to look orange.
But
he's starting to become below average at the go route, at the deep post, and the deep comeback. Some of those routes are starting to come back, and okay, he might be a guy that has to go to the slot more. Well, we've got Khalil Shakir.
Yeah.
And we like him a lot. So
but can't both of these things be true? Can't both of it be? I totally agree with you.
Yes, they could both be true.
They walked away from the table.
They probably are both true.
They walked away from the table at the absolute perfect time. And they got a premium asset in exchange for it.
That's the other part of it to me that is always that's left unsaid too much, is that if you look back on the history of wide receivers that age on that contract, when they get dealt, how much they go for, it's day 3 picks.
They got
almost every time it's a day 3 pick.
60% better than Amari Cooper went for a sixth.
Because think about how Houston looks back on that trade. They're not happy with that trade.
No,
they got half a year. I mean, even if he had played the whole year, I guess depends what you do in the playoffs, but they're not happy with it at all.
No.
They got 1 year, not even a full year.
They got 8 games
of a guy who did really good in those 8 games, but they gave up a second-round pick to do it.
Yep. And now they have no offensive lineman, and they need to draft offensive lineman.
That's why he shouldn't have cost that much. He should not have cost a second-round pick,
agree.
and the price definitely factors in as well. So now, he goes to New England. To me, before we get to what the Patriots are, I do like it for them a lot, but there is definitely risk. I can look up, Evan Lazar had this number yesterday. One number that I look at once in a while is ESPN's open score. How good is a receiver just straight up at getting open? A.J. Brown was number 1 in the league last year. Stefon Diggs was number 2 in the league. Second best open scorer in the NFL. Even that, though, there's risk because you don't know if he's going to be able to do that again. Because not only is he getting a year older, and at that age, sometimes it happens quick. You don't know how fast the decline is going to come. On top of that, he's coming off a torn ACL. So the age, the injury, that's a lot of risk, which is why, contracts are kind of whatever now, right? You can push the money wherever you want. They're a lot more flexible than we've really talked about them being. But giving a commitment like that to a player that carries that risk, it speaks of their desperation for 5 years to never get a receiver. That they can't get anybody to say yes to them. They had to give a deal like that to a guy that they have no idea what he's going to look like in year 2 or 3. The upside of it, I like for them. I just don't know if it's going to happen. The upside to me, their whole offseason has been pretty nice, right? Vrabel is a real coach, and he's a professional, and the culture that he brings, and they added to the defense, right? They spent more money this offseason than anybody. They add Milton Williams.
They had the most money. Yeah.
They did have the most money. But what was the one thing they hadn't succeeded in? Surrounding their young quarterback, who looked really good in year 1, with adequate weapons to take the next step. For me, when they add Diggs, I'm seeing a few of this from New England people that, this is like when Diggs went to Buffalo.
No, it is not.
Even they might admit he's not as good as he was then, but this is not the Diggs move. In fact, that's to me isn't to say this isn't helpful. To me, Diggs going to New England is Beasley coming to Buffalo.
Totally.
It is your underneath safety option, veteran receiver that's there as a trustworthy guy in the inside. He is their Beasley. He is not their Diggs.
I might argue he's their Sanders.
Or that's fine. Those are close enough, I think, right? The difference is, though, when Sanders was here at the end, he could get open still, downfield and on the outside. And again, that's to me going to be the biggest question mark with Diggs. He didn't get asked to do that in Houston last year, and the last time we saw him do it in Buffalo, it was super inefficient. He got a ton of targets in that second half of Joe Brady's interim year, and he was the least efficient receiver in football. I don't know if he can play on the outside like that anymore. But maybe you're right. Maybe what Sanders wasn't an elite player, so maybe he has that in there.
And I also, I don't see him walking. What did Beasley have his first year, his first full season? 145 targets or something?
He had some big target years.
That's not happening for Diggs.
Cole Beasley, let's see, 2019 with the Bills, he had 106 targets.
And then the next year was when he went off.
67 yards.
Right?
The next year he had 82 catches for 967 yards.
Yeah. I don't see those numbers.
Yeah. 778 and 6 touchdowns, though, I could see. That's Beasley's first year?
Yeah.
Because all they're looking for with him, I think, is give me a professional receiver that is going to be in the slot and produce with my young quarterback. They still, though, are missing the top guy on the outside. Mm-hmm. And we can get to that. 803-0550 is the phone number. Jay, if you stay on hold, we'll get to you. On Diggs going to New England. If you want to play the revisionist history game, we can, of course, do that too. I want to get to, though, what it does for New England in the AFC East. What the whole offseason does. Not just Diggs. Diggs is just kind of maybe their cherry on top. The bigger, more impactful moves they've made have already happened. 803-0550 is the phone number. It's Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary. This is WGR.
Sabres get the win over the Senators last night, 3-2. Goal scorers Jack Quinn, Jacob Bernard-Docker, his first as a Sabre, and Tage Thompson. James Reimer starts once again and stops 30 of 32 shots. The win also marks a milestone for head coach Lindy Ruff. He now has 600 regular season wins as the head coach of the Sabres. That also puts him at second in the NHL history, behind Al Arbor for most wins in one franchise. Al Arbor has 740 wins with the New York Islanders. Sabres back in action tomorrow, hosting the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 7 o'clock puck drop. Another quarterback off the free agency market yesterday as former Steeler Russell Wilson signs a one-year deal worth up to $21 million with the New York Giants. He joins Jameis Winston, who signed with the New York Giants over the weekend at a 2-year, $8 million deal. Another big free agency move last night. Former Bills wide receiver Stefon Diggs lands back in the AFC East, this time with the New England Patriots. He signed a 3-year, $69 million deal with $26 million guaranteed. Hey, join Mike Shope and Sal Capaccio as they broadcast live from the Ride for Roswell kickoff event this afternoon at Roswell's campus. This is your chance to pick up your fundraising materials and mingle while enjoying food and drinks. You can even see where all the funds raised go with an exclusive tour of Roswell Park's research labs and facilities. Kickoff event starts at 5 p.m. and all are welcome. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of business.
Zetterlund can handle him in front. Thompson scores! Zack Benson does the work, and Tage Thompson with the finish. 3-2 Buffalo.
It's one of your life. Go forth to Firth. The Sabres win last night over the Ottawa Senators. Jacob Bernard-Docker scoring his first as a Sabre in that game. Good morning. It's you might have woke up with some snow in your car.
Don't like that.
It was only enough snow, though, like with my automatic starter. By the time I got to my car, it was all melted off. But I could see it on my wife's car.
Mine was like powdery. It went off right away. Like it just blew right off.
Yeah.
That typical end of the year snow.
Yeah.
End of the winter snow.
Hopefully that is going to be it. I'm almost afraid to look at the weather report, though, because it's been a little chillier, and I don't even want to see a snowflake. Not even the icon. I don't want to see the icon of the snowflake. 803-0550 is the phone number. We got into it on Diggs in the last segment. You said he doesn't change your opinion on New England? What was your opinion on New England, though? Like, because for me, they're on the way. I don't think they are near competing with the Bills for the division yet. But I liked Drake May a lot in his rookie year, and they added a lot in the offseason. I think they probably upgraded their head coach. And even if Diggs is a lesser version of himself, they probably just upgraded themselves a receiver. I'll be very curious to see what they do with their first-round pick. They pick at 4. So I think they're on the right path. I think they are. To me, Miami. It's Miami's last stand. Like, to me, if they don't win this year, the coach is getting fired and Tyreek Hill is out of there. The Jets, Justin Fields, I'm not taking that too seriously. New England is the one, to me, that, like, within a couple of years, within even 2 years, I feel like they'll be the biggest headache.
So here's my thoughts on New England, and again, this is separate from Diggs, is I think they dramatically lifted their floor this offseason by going from, I think, not a very good head coach to a coach with a very high floor. I think he has a very clear, distinct ceiling, and I don't think that ceiling is an actual contender. Yeah. Like, I think they're going to run the ball a lot, and they're not going to spread it out. They're going to do what they did in Tennessee, right? It's play defense. We're going to run the football, and it's not going to matter really who the quarterback is, if I'm being honest. Like, are we under some impression they're going to be a spread and, Drake May's going to be running all over the place, making plays off schedule? I don't. I don't at all.
I don't know. I think probably not, but because, Vrabel did not run an offense like that in Tennessee. Who was his coordinator, though, in Tennessee? It was Arthur Smith?
It was Arthur Smith.
Who is a lot of play action, under center, running the ball, and they did have Derrick Henry.
Who's their coordinator?
Josh McDaniels again.
That's right. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of that.
Yeah.
He's going to be playing under center.
Yeah. They do have a lot of receivers. They don't have a lot of great receivers.
They have a ton of receivers.
They're all the same, kind of, right?
Yeah.
DeMario Douglas is, pretty good. Boutte is pretty good.
It's fine.
I don't think Polk is very good. Jalen Polk, who they drafted in the second round last year, used to be on our wide receiver big board back here. Glad the Bills didn't do that. He looks like the one that might not be able to play. And then they have pick 4, which I know we just they have receivers. They don't have a guy, though, that wins outside.
They don't have an alpha? Is that what you're saying?
They don't have an alpha number 1. Travis Hunter? You give me Drake May dropping back to pass with Diggs in the slot and Travis Hunter out wide, and I feel like they could be onto something. A lot of that to me is I like May. I like May a lot.
Have they signed an offensive lineman?
That is a great question.
I don't think they have.
I'll find that out.
Maybe they have one. They signed one. That was the worst offensive line in football last year.
New England?
Yes.
Yeah, he was under pressure all the time. It's what even made May's season even more impressive.
So
that he was able to do anything with
literally the worst offensive line in football. Maybe I think that they can't draft Travis Hunter.
They signed Morgan Moses to a 3-year deal.
Well, 36 years old, 3-year deal.
They signed Garrett Bradbury, the former center from Minnesota.
Who's not good. Yep.
And they signed a guard to a 1-year deal, so a smaller deal.
They really aren't going to be much better on their offensive line. They have to take the kid from LSU, Will Campbell.
Okay.
They don't have a choice.
Right, because you don't think Hunter will be there in the first place.
I think if he's there, they have to take offensive line.
All right.
And I think they will. Look at the coach. They're going to draft trenches.
Yeah.
Probably for the foreseeable future.
I'm going to be a little hesitant to just declare they can be a playoff team next year if they because again, I think Diggs is underneath. I think Diggs is in the slot. Right now, Mac Hollins might be their number 1 outside receiver.
He might be.
And we like Mac Hollins, but come on, you got to have a better target than that out there. Dave in Buffalo is next up on the show. What's up, Dave?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Just looking at what this probably means for the Bills, mostly it shows how Vrabel is really a good coach. Vrabel, I think, really is bringing a winning attitude to his team. Vrabel likely, by acquiring folks like Hollins and folks like Diggs, is going to tell the team, this is how this team won, and this is their ethic, and this is what they do, and we need to have our ethic, and we need to do our thing, and then we'll see what Diggs 2.0, actually more Diggs 3.0 or 4.0 looks like, and that's what we're going to put up with. But mostly, I think for us, it shows that New England is probably a good year away from really being competitive with us. I mean, any given Sunday, any team can beat any team, so you have to take New England seriously when you play them next year, every single game. But I think the prospects of them actually beating us out of the East next time are quite unlikely for a new coach. Then I think you also go to the Jets, and the Jets are, I don't know how many years away the Jets are. I mean, Joe Namath was the last great quarterback they had, and we'll see what the Jets do after they fired everybody on their team. And then Miami goes as far basically as Tua's health, and given Tua's health background, I don't think they're competitive next year either. So the Bills, come into this season as probably the odds-on favorite to win the division. So it's interesting in that if you went to the pundits last year, the Bills were coming into last year as, they're going to have to retool and figure this out. It's going to be a step back, and it was completely different. So the Bills are just looking for ways to beat Kansas City, and I think that's where we still are.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for the call. It is a little interesting. Like Vrabel and Glenn, the two teams that just hired coaches, are they playing copycat a little bit? That they've seen the culture and the consistency that McDermott has brought to the Bills, and they didn't go for, the 35-year-old play caller to come in and be their head coach. They brought in guys that they would think are going to come in and, all the nonsense that you've had in the building, we're done with that. That was the first thing Aaron Glenn did when he got to New York, wasn't it? He met with Aaron Rodgers, and was like, if you're staying here, you're doing everything you're supposed to. You're not going to Egypt in the middle of training camp to go do drugs. You're gonna be here getting practice reps and doing everything we ask of you. And he left, or got cut, I should say. And with Vrabel, we know Vrabel is all of that. So, yeah, a little interesting, the two coaching hires that happened this summer. I'm with you, though, Dave. Like, I think New England is more than a year away. But at the end of the day, it's all going to come down to how good's the quarterback. Right? That's 80% of it. How good's the quarterback? And how good are you at surrounding him with what he needs? And as you just pointed out, like, maybe the offensive line is still going to be a struggle. And that'll be tough for him. The good thing about what New England has, though, that's different than their last guy. Mac Jones, Pro Bowl year in his rookie season. They make the playoffs. And then instant regression and completely unravels, and he's out of there. He was very immobile.
Yes.
Any problems they had up front, he was toast. He was getting sacked. Or he was being forced into picks. If you saw what May did last year, he's got wheels. And he's smart about it. I feel like he is one of these guys. Allen is the best at it. Jackson is one of the best at it. And there are a bunch of others who are very good at this. How good are you when you're faced with pressure? How good are you at knowing when to escape, when to get rid of the ball quick? Are you athletic enough to get away in the first place? And one thing that does impress me about May is in those situations, he's got it. His scramble rate is very high. But again, he's a good enough athlete where 400 yards rushing last year. So a lot of it's going to be how good is Drake May. And if he's only pretty good, then you might not have much to worry about in the division. If he's great, then they might be a headache. Year in and year out. Would you predict he's better than Tua right now? He'll be better than Tua. Because that's Tua. Tua was, he turned into a pretty good quarterback, and then eventually was, okay, you guys are going too far with this. Are we going to get to that point with New England fans? Eventually, Miami fans went too far, and they thought, number one in the league in passing yards, he's just as good. And up here, we're like, yeah, no, he's not. Is New England going to get to that point where they think their guy's just as good? Or on the same tier? Maybe not just as good.
I think they probably won't be as good as Tua because he just does not have the supporting cast that Tua does.
Not yet. We'll see. 803-0550 is the phone number. New England picking fourth. Some backup quarterback trivia when we come back. And we've got Jonathan Peterlin coming up 8 o'clock on Cleveland, who with Russell Wilson being signed away in New York, might be the most desperate quarterback situation that we have in the league right now. All that ahead. It's Joe DiBiase. It's Nate Geary. This is WGR. Before we get to that, let's give away some tickets. Caller 5 or 6 to 716-221-4WGR. Wins a 4-pack of tickets to the Buffalo Bison's opening day game Friday in 2 days. It's March 28th. 2:05 first pitch against the Rochester Red Wings. Visit bisons.com for tickets. 5 and 6 or 5 or 6?
5 and 6. You'll win if you're caller 5.
5 and 6.
You'll win if you're caller 5, and you'll win if you're caller 6.
Gotcha. If you're caller 5, you are going to win.
Yes.
Okay. Not like Josh gets to pick who he likes more, 5 or 6. All right, backup quarterback trivia. Let's just remember, inside the NBA plays a game called Who He Play For. We're going to play a version of that. Who he play for. Where did the backup quarterbacks in the league go?
Okay.
Where did Zach Wilson go?
Denver.
No.
What do you mean?
This offseason.
This offseason.
This offseason. Where did Zach Wilson go?
Miami.
Miami. Where did Cooper Rush go? Former Cowboys backup quarterback Cooper Rush. Where is he now? I think he signed a multi-year deal, too. I saw the number. I'm like, that's what a backup quarterback's getting paid to? I'm like, okay, that's not...
Washington?
No. You are very close geographically, though.
Not Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Really?
Cooper Rush is now the backup quarterback of the Baltimore Ravens.
That is interesting.
It's a very different style than...
I would say
they've usually
different.
had mobile backups. He's not...
Marginally different styles.
Where did Gardner Minshew go anymore? They've kind of blown it up.
Did they?
Debo's gone.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of the defensive stuff more so, I guess. Yeah, no, in the system is the system, right? McCaffrey, Achilles injuries.
Achilles injuries. 2 of them.
They traded Jordan Mason away, the number 2 back. When we come back, Jonathan Peterlin from the Fan in Cleveland. What are the Browns going to do at quarterback? Pickett or somebody else? We'll get to it with him when we come back here on WGR.